Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is January 29th, and my name's Chris Reagan. I'm from Halon Tax. We have a great presentation today. This is again from the Small Business University. This is our tax planning module that we teach to all bookkeeping and financial professionals. It's not necessarily how to do your own tax planning. We realize you may not want to do that you're on the financial accounting side. What we're teaching in this module is just some ideas about how tax planning works, a little bit more about how you can help your clients through tax planning issues, and then goes into some of the ways that even Halon does its tax planning. So I hope you enjoy it. So I think this is going to be kind of a fun lesson. This one's all about tax planning. And, I have to tell you, tax planning is a major way that I sell my services at Reagan Financial, especially when someone is already an S Corp or has been in business for a while. Tax planning is the major gripe that every business owner has. Hardly any accountants really do it. So if you can master a sales pitch and an offer of tax planning, it can unlock a lot of doors for a lot of other pieces of your business. The basis of my sale is this. If you're not part of our tax planning add-on, then I don't care what the actual tax due amount is when we get to tax season. All I care about is accuracy. Now think about that. I'm actually going to try and show the client that I don't care about something. And that's important because otherwise the client believes that it is included in everything you do. Because why wouldn't it be? Right? Why wouldn't it be? So you have to kind of create this line in the sand of, I don't do tax planning unless you pick up my tax planning add-on. Otherwise, I do not care what the tax due is. My basic packages that I sell at Reagan Financial, the basic core package, it's not selling low taxes. Of course, it's selling S corporation savings, right, with the self-employment tax piece. But fundamentally, it is not selling low taxes where your taxes, even including the S corp, would be at X rate, and we're going to try and lower it down to Y, down 20% or something. What we're selling with our core packages is accurate bookkeeping and taxes that reflect that accurate bookkeeping. I tell them, if you come to me during tax season and you ask me, you say this to me, Chris, oh man, I saw the tax return. How do I get this number down? I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to remind you of this conversation that we're having. I'm going to say to you this, I have no idea. You're not on the tax planning package. So I don't really worry about the taxes. It sounded like you weren't either, Mr. Smith. Or else you would have purchased the tax planning add-on, right? It sounded like you didn't really care about it at the time. I'm going to turn this around on them. I'm going to make them stare it down. And the best time to make them stare down this idea of, do you care if your taxes are high or low, is when you're selling them, not waiting until tax season. Do it during the sales meeting. Now, does this make the client uncomfortable? Sure it will. Will you lose the sale over, making a big deal out about tax planning? No, I never have. Because people can't stand the idea of paying too much tax. So while they don't like the idea, they're not going to like the idea that your tax planning is extra, and they'll say little jabs like, well, I've never had to hire an accountant before that, separated out helping me save on taxes. I just thought that's part of the job. I do not care. Do not fall for that. Because what we are selling to them is too important to include just as part of our overall package. It's too much time. It costs you money. So while they don't like it, they very much want it. And they can't stand the idea of not having it. And I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking, how do I talk about all this if I don't do the personal tax return? Well, I'm going to get into all of that in this lesson. I'm going to get into it in detail. So, let's just jump in, shall we? So to get started with our tax planning lesson here, I want to touch on the first way I sell the tax planning module. And it has nothing to do with fancy strategies or tax projections or anything like that. It has to do with the bookkeeping and how our team approaches transactions for people on our tax planning add-on versus how we approach them for people who did not opt for it. Has everything to do with the bookkeeping. I tell them that our bookkeeping work is meant to record, to organize, to publish the financial information of the business into financial statements, right? It's just the compliance, nothing more. Our deliverable for bookkeeping in a core package is financial statements. This means that we are not looking for opportunities to save tax money. We are not looking at each transaction and, more importantly, asking questions about the things that are normally personal and not deductible and saying, wait, have you ever thought about doing this a different way? We're not doing that if they are not on the tax planning package. So it starts with bookkeeping. One example I use is automobile deductions. If you're on our tax planning service, we're going to go out of our way to make sure, however you structure your auto expense, we're going to go out of our way to make sure we're maximizing that deduction. Suggest better ways to structure the purchase, ways to track mileage, home office benefits to auto, all of it. Remember all that accountable plan stuff that I had in Accounting 1. However, if they're not on the tax planning package, we don't really worry about it. We just book it however they do it. You know, if they don't own the car and it's owned personally, unless they tell us, hey, here's our mileage, here's our accountable plan, here's all these things to make sure this is deductible, I don't need to do all that. That's part of tax planning. I bet at this point, some of you are going, oh, I see. And of course, if they want that service, the accountable plan service, they may have to buy that add-on too. But we're not going to worry about mentioning and getting into all of this and fiddling with it and trying to help them with it if they're not on the tax planning package, because all of this revolves around this idea of, if you're going to pay me to save on taxes, I'm going to suggest a lot. But it's not my job. My job as a pure bookkeeper is to record what you do. That's it. Record it in an accurate way. We don't have to help them get the most out of things. Our mandate is just to book what they're doing. Another example of this is when a client goes to Walmart. If you're on the tax planning engagement, we might try to draw out what was purchased at Walmart. What could possibly be a business expense? In fact, at year end, we look at all the shareholder distributions that we booked for the whole year and try and find out if anything in there was deductible. We do that part of the financial review board meetings. If they're not on the tax planning engagement, it's up to them to tell us. Say, hey, that Walmart had some business in it. Here's what it is. They have to make a big deal about it. What was business and what's not. Otherwise, we just move on. We're not concerned with if any of this is deductible or not. That tax planning has to do with what's deductible, what's not. Let me find ways to save you money. If you're not part of this package, we're not going to do all that. We're going to record the facts. That's it. So if you don't send us a note that says, hey, on this Walmart deal, it was part business, part this, we're just going to book it to shareholder distribution and move on, because that normally is where that probably should be. I emphasize that compliance and planning are different things. You know, that's what I have on the screen here. Compliance is filing forms. Planning is reducing your tax bill. In that sales meeting, they feel my indifference to them if they don't pick up this package. They see that I'm not joking. I use the words. I really use these words. We don't really worry about the tax amount. Do you see how much that could worry them? You see, it's confrontational, but that's okay, because if they're not going to buy this later on down the road, you have to remind them of this conversation so that they go, Oh yeah, I remember. You made a pretty big deal out of that, and now I see why that's important to me. I better buy it now. That's what we're setting them up for the people who don't get it and don't want to buy it after your pitch. We're basically getting a get out of jail card when they do have a problem of some kind or a tax bill and they say, I really need to save money. Pick up the planning engagement. That's when we start thinking about all of this stuff. Okay? Make them feel the pain of tax bills before they actually get to them. Make sense? Okay, let's move on. So next, I tell them that, real tax planning and super low tax bills require a ton of discipline. Now, our job, and I advertise this on my website, many of you have asked me about it. I tell the client, I'm going to show you how to get your tax bill down to zero every year. That's going to be an output of the tax planning package. I'm going to show you how to do it. And then I tell them that unless they live like a monk and spend nothing on themselves, on their children, on their spouses, on their family, it will be very hard to get anywhere close to zero. The only, only the most aggressive and selfless can get to $0 in tax. But I'm going to show them how. There's lots of deductions. There's lots of ways I can show you how to get to zero. I can say, go out and buy things until you get to zero taxable income, right? Let's not make showing them how to get to zero that hard. And you may say, well, they don't want to spend all that money. I mean, they won't have any left for themselves. Exactly. That's why it's hard to get to zero. But I'm going to show them how to get to there. I'm going to show them every deduction we have. And then I'm going to take it a step further and say, okay, now that we've shown you everything that's easy, here's the other hard stuff. And I'm going to show you later how Tax Planner Pro, and there's lots of things that help you do all of this. But I'm going to show them how to do it. Showing them how they could have gotten there and setting the expectation that they won't. But this is all part of the sales process because they want to believe that they're disciplined enough. So when you're selling this, talking about zero tax, you're going to get a lot of people shaking their head up and down, agreeing with you. Yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because they want to believe that they can be proactive enough to do it. Make sure you set the reality that very, very few actually can. Our job's to show it to them, but more than likely, they will not achieve this. A while back, kind of as a way to illustrate this, I wrote a blog about how the IRS loves it when you buy barbecue grills. Or that sort of fun thing in your life. Maybe it's not a barbecue grill, maybe it's something else. Why? Because anytime you spend money on personal stuff, it means you can't deduct it, right? If you spend money on a barbecue grill, that's cash you can't deduct on your tax return, which means that the income that generated that cash is now taxable because there's no deduction to go against it. That's good for the IRS, bad for the client. And that is at the heart of why it is so hard to pay less tax, because people want to buy so much stuff. And I'm not talking about houses or cars or food. If that was all you bought and you were thrifty about what you bought, you bought a very inexpensive house, very inexpensive cars, very inexpensive food, you could probably still get to zero tax and didn't spend anything on luxuries. And I'm talking about not spending anything on luxuries. The large house, the spendy car, the boat, the trips, the iPhone, the clothes, the tools, the golf clubs, the makeup, all of it. You'd have to not buy any of it to really get to zero tax, because you'd have to have all that cash available for business spending. And all of that is what the IRS kind of loves to see. No deduction, and it creates tax. So set up your clients with the understanding that you will show them what they need to do to get to zero tax, but don't make them think it's attainable. Rather, what they are paying you for is this. This is really at the heart of why they want your package. Because you're going to help them understand the art of the possible. What they can do, right? You're going to show them some things that they can do to to take a little dent out of the tax bill. I'm sure that dent will be more than what they pay you for the tax planning. I mean, we're not talking about showing people how to save $200 here. But to go from $15,000 or $20,000 in tax to zero, you don't have to do that to get paid $700 for tax planning. My tax planning package is like $55 a month. So, I always think of it as about $700. You need to show them maybe a couple $1,000s, some good ideas. Heck, your S corporation, we could call, switching to an S corporation tax planning, right? I mean, you've saved them a lot of money just right there. But we're going to show them what is possible. That alone will save them a ton of money. But tax planning is not always, get this, tax planning is not always about saving money. It's also knowing what they will owe. In fact, 85% of your clients won't do any strategies you suggest. But they are still super worried about what they owe every year. And that's the next feature you're going to pitch in selling them tax planning is the idea of projections. And that's my next slide. So projections serve many functions. First, they are the primary way we figure out how much tax is coming at the client. And this is so important. It's so important that they know what is coming at them. Just knowing what is coming is half the battle. I have a ton of experience in this, okay? I've been doing tax projections for most, if not all, of my client base for 18 years. The reason clients love getting them is because it kickstarts that need to be proactive. They want to be super proactive, but they forget about taxes until tax season. So tax season comes around, they're really mad about taxes, like, I gotta save this year. And then they forget about it. It comes summer and Christmas and everything, and they don't think about it until the next tax season. So by presenting them projections without them asking, being proactive on your side, they say, yes, this is exactly why I hired you. This is what accountants, they'll say, this is what accountants are supposed to be doing. I mean, if you're not doing anything during the summer, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be planning, showing me what's coming, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, we get it, Mr. Smith. All of that's fine. If they want to talk that way, fine. As long as they are paying for the pleasure of saying that. And that's why it's so important to delineate these services, because otherwise they're just going to come into your office and say, what are you doing? How are you helping me? We want to delineate these things. See, kind of before I really started getting into tax planning, clients would hammer me during tax season with all the questions like, why didn't you tell me this was coming? If I knew that I was going to owe this much, I would have done something about it. Now we know 85% actually wouldn't have. These are statistics from my own practice, and I can assure you I'm very, very good at selling strategies, and they still don't do it. So even if you present them strategies, they're still not going to do it. I have so many accountants worried about strategies, and I'm trying to say to them, like this is on the Tax Planner Pro side, I say, look, don't be so worried about strategies. Sell them projections, because that's really what they want, and it's what they need to buy every single year. They need to know what's coming at them. But as an accountant, as they were yelling at me about these kind of things, I felt guilty. And that guilt made me kind of analyze what had happened. And here's what I came up with. Here's how I figured out what drives clients about hiring an accountant kind of in the first place. You see, clients really want someone to lower their overall cost of doing business. This can come in the form of suggesting, better operating strategy, right? This is the famed strategic advisor role we hear so much. You must become the advisor to your clients instead of the bookkeeper or the accountant, right? We hear that a lot. That's what that means. If you can do that, and there's opportunities to do that, that's a way that you can satisfy their idea of what you're there to do. It can come as cost-cutting, like a cost-cutting suggestion, ways to fund capital or manage debt. These are all reasons why people want an accountant. They want to, lower their overall cost of doing business. Or it can be tax savings or reduction of tax due. My experience has always been that the tax part is the most important, is usually a huge cost and one that business owners see no benefit from, right? They just pay this money out and they get nothing back. It's just gone. So when clients were hiring me and I was not providing that, they were getting mad. But wait. The tax return and the bookkeeping is hard work, right? I mean, set aside planning for a second. Just doing the bookkeeping and the tax return is worth what we charge. So if we're not satisfying them by just doing that compliance work, there's a problem, right? Why are they not seeing value in that? Well, the answer is that they do see value in it, but not as much as you think. They see it more as a necessary evil. And I use this example a lot. Think about your water bill. You value your water, right? But just the fact that it's on. If your water goes off, it's a 5-alarm emergency, right? You're calling somebody, you're going to the office, you're saying, why is my water off? You don't appreciate all the things that go into supplying your home with clean, safe, reliable water service. However, if someone came to you with a way to save you on your water bill, you would value that a lot. The same is true with what we do with taxes and books and tax planning. So as I started thinking about this, I started to realize the planning was the major thing I needed to focus on in my sales meetings. My deliverable and even my operations needed to revolve around tax planning. But here was the catch. I had to get paid for it because otherwise I would drown in planning because I'm still having to clean the water, right? Even though I can't, I want to show them how to save money on their water bill. I can't do that until I've cleaned the water and delivered it to their house, right? That's bookkeeping and the tax returns. I still have to do that. So I have to get paid for it. It's a lot of work. And that's when I figured out planning versus compliance and how to kind of separate them. It's why you see that planning add-on now at Reagan Financial. It all centers around projections and around saying this is an additional service. Let me kind of take it to another step here and show you what a projection looks like, because this is one of the main aspects you'll be selling and is a very good visual when you're selling a tax planning package. So let me show you that. All right, so here is a tax projection. This is a summary from Tax Planner Pro. It has a business tax projection and a personal tax projection. They're sort of different, so I'm going to kind of break down some of it. And just full disclosure, Tax Planner Pro is another software that I produce. This isn't going to be all about going out and buying Tax Planner Pro. I'm actually going to give you an idea of when to buy that later in the video. But let me kind of break this thing down here a little bit and show you, because it's kind of a cool tool and one that you would need if you were going to sell tax planning add-ons. First is the business projection. That's over on the left. You can kind of see it titled Party Accountants there. This is just a sample file. The goal is to take some historical data and try to project what January 1 through December 31st is going to look like for the year. As you can see, this projection is done probably mid-year. I'm shooting this mid-year. So what we're trying to project is the entire year based on incomplete information. Does that make sense? We're trying to use what we know about the business in its past to project what it's going to do in the future. This is much easier said than done, because businesses are not always linear. Some are seasonal, some are growing, some are shrinking, some are just volatile. That's one of the reasons software is so helpful in doing projections. It can analyze data and make decisions with you that help minimize the time of trying to figure all of that out. Anyways, TPP, and that's short for Tax Planner Pro, has a few different options, and without getting into too much of a tutorial of the software, it manages to offer solutions for any business type. So if there's a seasonal business, there's a projection methodology we use where we look at the last year and we kind of look at 365 days and do what's called a rolling average. There's lots of different ways to make sure that these business side projections get done. It connects to QBO and researches and runs all of that for you. So what the result, the result of all this is a very good guess. And notice that I said guess. It's still a guess, but it's a very good guess at what this year is going to be. The really important number is the net income. That's down at the bottom, that gray box. This is what goes over to the personal return and influences what the outcome of the personal return is. Without doing a business projection, would the personal even be close? No. That's why as bookkeepers and financial accountants, we must be involved in the tax planning. If our work is not being used to project taxes, it's all worthless. If you're just going to guess at it, it's a terrible situation, right? You can't just base it on what they did last year. The business could be double. So we need to know what the financials are looking like, and Tax Planner Pro kind of pulls all of that in there. As the keeper of the business information and the business return, we're critical here, right? And I would actually say that we're more critical than the personal return and the personal tax preparer. You may say, well, how is it that you can say that? Well, let's talk about the personal projection, okay? This is the one over on the right. It also must be projected for the entire year. You can't just project, one quarter, because several of the elements of a personal tax return, like the standard deduction, are annual amounts. Tax rates are based on a full year of income, so you have to predict the full 12 months that goes into a tax year. As you can see, up at the top, it starts with wages, and then there's some interest and dividends, then the business income. That business income number isn't exactly what we see over on the other side because there's other businesses in this projection. So there's other things going on besides that party accountants there. But you see all of these things start to, come down into itemized deductions, and you get kind of a feel for what the overall personal tax projection looks like. Now, let me ask you this. Here's why I say personal, I think, is easier. Are the numbers like for, say, their mortgage interest or their property taxes, do those change a lot? I mean, the mortgage interest that you had last year and then the mortgage interest that you have this year, it's going to be just like a little less, right? Because you paid off a little bit of your loan, so the interest goes down. Do the property taxes change that much? Maybe 2 or 3%? They're not these huge swings though, right? That makes a difference. How often do wages change by some huge amount? What about the kids? What about interest income? Sure, they change a little, but 95% of the stuff that is on the personal tax return is similar to last year. So if you just plug in the same figures as what was on their personal tax return last year, you're going to be very close. So that's what we do. That's how Tax Planner Pro works. That's how I've been doing projections for years and years and years. In fact, TPP does it for you. You just upload the 1040, and 24 hours later, it's all done for you. So Tax Planner Pro actually inputs all the personal tax return data in there for you so that last year simulated just like what was on the 1040. The result is an idea of what the tax is going to look like, both for federal and for state. So, this is at the heart of really what I'm going to talk about here pretty soon, which is, selling clients when you're not doing the 1040. All you're doing is connecting QBO. It produces a business tax projection. You're uploading a 1040 or let the client do it, and it produces a personal tax projection. And that projection is going to be very close. Now, sure, could things have changed? Of course. If the client comes back and says, hey, I got a new job that pays me double. I get it. And we can show you at Tax Planner Pro anyways how to deal with all of that. But my point here is, for most of your clients, this is going to be a very simple task. You're setting this up, and then I'm going to show you a little bit about how to really sell this and how the operational side of it is. So the question becomes, how do I convince a client to have me do this if I don't do their personal tax return, right? Because Halon, the kind of what I've taught in the previous lessons is I don't really think you guys need to be doing personal tax returns. And you're not, many of you are not qualified to do it, haven't done them before. I'm not asking you to do that, even though I'm asking you to offer tax planning. Let me show you next just exactly how that's going to work. So let's talk about, selling clients on 1040 planning when you don't do the 1040 return. I understand how this seems tricky. You're not a tax expert, right? You have Halon do the corporate returns, and 1040s, 1040s are all kinds of complicated. Just remember this. We're not really saying we're going to do their 1040 tax prep. We are saying we will provide tax planning for their whole situation. We're not offering 1040 tax prep, okay? So here's how you're going to explain it. Let's say that the client plans to do let's say that in this situation, the client plans to do their own tax return. So you've sold them on Halon or your services doing the corporate tax return, and they're okay doing their own 1040, right? So really, if they're doing their own 1040, they are in charge of their tax planning. Does that make sense? They're in charge of it. Well, let's say they're using TurboTax. Them and TurboTax is in charge of it. So here's what your pitch is. Mr. Smith, since you're doing your 1040, I have a plan, my tax planning add-on, that will join our business taxes and the work we're doing there with projections of the business and personal side of things, the personal side with you being in charge of. I have software that I will set up. I will set all of this up. I'm going to set it up for you. I'm going to upload your prior year 1040, okay, as well as set up the business tax projection. So once I get things set up, this is going to give you kind of a baseline of what the taxes look like each and every year. And in fact, it updates the business information every single week. So you will have up-to-date information all of the time. You're going to have your own login to it. And you'll be able to go in and play with the personal tax figures anytime you like. It has some strategies in it. So it comes complementary with several strategies that you're not taking advantage of. It analyzes what you should be doing, and you can use those as part of this. But if you wanted to have a meeting with our CPA team, once a year, I can set that up, and they will not only go into your tax projection and customize it and make sure that everything is exactly as it should be, even your personal side, but they will go over several new custom strategies with you and make sure they answer all of your questions related to how you can save money on your tax bill. And all you have to do, the only requirement to have all of this, is purchase the planning package, and we do the rest. Now, if they're going to use a tax preparer, right? Let's say they're not using TurboTax and they're going to use a tax preparer. Just change the pitch a little bit and we provide access to the software to you and your tax preparer, and you guys can customize it as you see fit. I'll make sure that the business side is right and the business projections are right, and then you and your tax preparer can go through the personal side of it, and you guys can all access it on your own and really fine-tune the projections together. I'll provide all of that as part of the package, including access to the software. This is really, Mr. Smith, a way to collaborate with all of us, around what you want to be doing on the business side, what you want to be doing on the personal side, and we have resources to offer you from both directions. Even if you want another CPA to take a look at it, we have options like that too. My CPA tax team can do it and help you with it just the same. Do you get it? Do you get it? The CPAs I mentioned are the CPA tax team that works at Halon, who during the off season can be used for this for a very small fee. So, we're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of like $99. You're getting $700. You set up the software, and then $99, you get a full meeting with the CPA where they're going over all of this stuff. Don't really let your clients do more than one, or charge them if they want to do more than one. Charge them an extra $99 for additional meetings. That way you're not, spending too much with it. But our team, our CPA tax team, is supporting TPP all year too. So they are very ready to handle anything that a client needs. They are very good at Tax Planner Pro. They are very good at individual tax projections. They know all of that stuff. And kind of my point is, this is easy to sell. And you're never going to be in a situation where you have to offer 1040 advice. You are offering the software, you're offering the setup, and the business projections with an eye on business tax planning through the bookkeeping, because you're doing the books, all of that. I promise you, this sells. And the reason I know it is because I don't offer individual tax returns at my office. So this is what we offer to people. And I promise you it sells. You know what I mean? If you just try it and get behind it, it sells very, very, very well. Okay, now, let me kind of dive into this idea of what we actually do with tax projections once we have them. So first and foremost, make kind of a big deal out of what you think the client is going to owe. When you're doing projections, be conservative. And Tax Planner Pro and the bookkeeping is going to be conservative, but be as conservative as you can. Showing a client they will owe $25,000 on a tax projection, and then when they actually do the tax return, it turns out they only owe $20,000 when the return's done, is much better than the other way around, right? Where they're surprised. No one wants a surprise the wrong way. Be deliberate with emails that say, okay, this tax due is coming at you. Have you done this strategy that was in Tax Planner Pro? Let's say it's employ their kids, right? An easy one. Are we going to set the kids up on this because this can save you a lot of money? You need to go look at this strategy, blah, blah, blah. Just hammer them with this tax is coming, this tax is coming. TPP will have suggestions for you to provide clients. Pick out the simple ones at first. Make them responsible for their situation. There will be no saying during tax season. There will be no saying this. I wish I would have known this was coming, Chris. Why didn't you give me a suggestion of what to do? You're going to be in their ear a few times between, say, mid-year and the end of the year. If you need some more exotic suggestions, let's say they're part of the 3% of your clients that do all of the suggestions. They're like, give me more, give me more, give me more. Set up that meeting with the CPA tax team. We can show them some crazy stuff. I mean, if they want to deduct $400,000 a year, I know how to do it. If they want to deduct $1 million and put it into a crazy insurance deal, we know how to do it. But we're never going to suggest that until they max out their 401k and employ their kids, right? They got to do the simple stuff first. So make a big deal out of the amount due. And always remember, if clients won't do the easy stuff, they will very rarely do the crazy stuff. So don't let them kind of get you into this mode of, well, I don't really want to do those, but what else do you have? You need to come right back at them saying, guys, this is the easiest money to save there is. This is the easiest strategy I've got. If you want other more complex strategies, which we have them, tell them that. Say, my folks can show you things to the end of the moon, but they're never going to recommend that to us until we do the easy stuff. The 85% of my clients that never do a strategy, this is how they talk. They say things like, okay, so I should do that and do that and do that. And how much will that save me? Oh, wow, that's pretty good. Okay, well, what else do you have? You want to know why? Because they're just curious. They don't have any plans on doing any of it. They're just curious. And just kind of end it and say, I've got lots of other things, but you got to do these first before we get into it. And if they say, well, why don't you show me those? Say, okay, let's set up the CPA meeting. We'll show you. We'll show you all the things you can do. Take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Show them all the exotic stuff. They'll realize that you have the firepower on tax planning and that it's really being held up by their inability to get stuff done, right? And to take the leap. Also, you want to use the projections to calculate the quarterly tax payments. To figure out what somebody needs to have paid in quarterly, the estimated tax payments, you just take the tax projection, whatever's due, and divide it by 4. And that's what needs to be paid in each quarter. And they can do so with their personal tax preparer or TurboTax. S corporations very rarely have anything due. They really never do. It's the states that may have quarterlies. And Halon will provide you the quarterly vouchers for those state payments that need to be made. Most of the time, we're always talking about personal returns. Okay, so just divide by 4. And you can say, here's what we think the amount due for second quarter is for federal, and here's what we think it's going to be for Maryland. And, use your coupons that are with your tax preparer and TurboTax or any of that stuff and send it in. You can send them reminder emails whenever those are due. Why not? Why not set something up in MailChimp? That's what we do. We set up 4 different emails that go out about 15 days before each quarterly's due. And just reminding them, hey, your quarterly payments are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you make them. We don't customize them to say how much. If they want to know that, they can communicate back to us because if they're on the tax planning package, we've communicated that with them already. Projections are awesome, and TPP, makes it super easy to have them updated every week so clients can see the changes and kind of what happens if they do different things. So utilize them and get some mileage out of them. Communicate with your clients and let them feel how proactive you're being just by showing them what the tax due is going to be. It has reports in it, all kinds of stuff. So it will, Tax Planner Pro will take care of you. And kind of speaking of that, let's talk about what you get when you are a Tax Planner Pro user and a Halon financial accountant, or a certified Halon tax advisor. If you have passed this course, you have special benefits as it relates to Tax Planner Pro. First, only Halon financial accountants get access to the CPA tax team in this way. This is not something that we offer through Tax Planner Pro. So if your clients went and bought Tax Planner Pro on their own, they would not get to talk to a CPA. They would not get a CPA meeting. They just get the software, they're turned loose with it, and that's it. The support folks do not provide tax advice, any of that. So this is a huge benefit to being part of the Halon system, is now your Tax Planner Pro subscription is extended to have this CPA meeting benefit. To request a CPA meeting, you use the chat inside of Halon. And what customer service does is they're going to ask you to provide the time and the phone number to call for the meeting. We'll also, before the meeting, we'll review the tax projection, and we'll make sure that the CPA is familiar with that and the 1040 and is completely ready for that meeting. Many times we will open up a online kind of an online meeting software like GoToMeeting or something if the client is interested in that. So all of this support, the customer support's going to ask you about all of this, and you're going to give them answers, and then we're going to set the meeting. Once the meeting begins, you and your client will listen. This is a time where, the CPA tax team's really going to be in presentation mode. And you're going to listen as the CPA provides an overview of the projection. They're going to give several suggestions as to what the best planning opportunities are. Now, some of them are going to be the same opportunities that are inside TPP if they're not utilizing them. And they're going to go over why they're so important. They're going to kind of quantify it. They're going to use a simulator to go over the different options, the different amounts that they could do. Your client and you can interact with the CPA with questions, and the meeting can last up to 45 minutes. This is a great way to ensure projections are accurate and that your client has a really great experience. Again, they must buy your tax planning package. This is not available anywhere else. You can find pricing for these meetings inside of Halon and on the Halon website. Now, here's a caveat. You must buy Tax Planner Pro to be able to use the service, okay? TPP is not included. I personally, I recommend that you buy a lifetime subscription. That way you have the software forever and access to the CPA tax team forever. So any of these meetings that you ever do, you've got the CPA tax team at your back ready to do these meetings with you. Tax planning, this tax planning meeting service can only take place June through December. So not in tax season. So the pricing is different based on the time of year. June through October is a lower cost than what we charge for these meetings November and December, because everyone will be trying to have meetings in November and December. Let me give you some advice. I do all of my meetings before that, because if you set up meetings for November and December, here's what happens. Your clients come back to you right away, and it's Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they're asking you questions, and they're trying to get a handle on all these strategies they're trying to do. So don't do that. Try and move it up and do these as early as possible. They're still going to email you at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but at least you'll have done your best to mitigate that, right? I've personally trained each of these CPAs, okay, on how to build, you up during these meetings. So even, let's say they found an error or something that needs changing in the books, and your heart skips a beat. Oh, how's he going to handle this? They're going to handle it like it was their error. And they're going to handle it like we don't need to let the client know that even exists. We're going to move on by it. And then later, after the client's no longer on the phone, maybe via email or something, they're going to communicate with you and say, hey, I saw this whenever I was reviewing the books. You might want to change this to that. And I think you'll be good to go there. It is their job to make you look good. Otherwise, no one's going to want to have meetings with them. And they know that. So I assure you, they're going to be on your team. They will not, there will be no throwing people under the bus here, right? And no making anyone look bad. So these are very easy meetings to have, and meetings that will make you and your client's relationship that much better. And so if you're interested in getting started with Tax Planner Pro, you can find it at taxplannerpro.com. It's also on the Intuit App Store. If you go to taxplannerpro.com, you'll find several demo videos. And inside of Tax Planner Pro is another huge video course. And there's a whole bunch of marketing about how to market, not just tax planning, but how to market your business. Things that I didn't go over in the Halon courses. There's a whole bunch of advanced stuff in those Tax Planner Pro courses. So the courses alone make it really, trust me, it's worth every penny. There's some really cool stuff that I do with Facebook ads and drip campaigns and all kinds of things. It's kind of an advanced marketing course. So here's the other thing I want to say. I don't want any of you really rushing out there and buying Tax Planner Pro until something happens. And that is until you sell a tax planning package. Don't buy my software thinking you need it now to where you have a whole bunch of pressure on you to go out and sell this tax planning stuff. Because once you spend money, you're going to be like, oh gosh, and I'm a failure. I didn't sell any tax planning. Don't do that. Tax Planner Pro will be fine. We will wait for you until you really need it. So focus on selling the tax planning package. Then when you sell your first one, say, okay, I know how to do it. Let's buy Tax Planner Pro, right? Does that make sense? I'll feel bad if you buy it and you're not able to use it. We won't give you a refund either. So be cautious like that. And I hope you see this as me not willing to push Tax Planner Pro. I only want you to get it once you have need of it. Does that make sense? Now, if you say, well, but I want to spend the money because I want to see all those videos that are inside that, sure, that's okay. Do that if you want to. But for most of you, there's no need to buy this until you've sold some tax planning stuff. So focus more on how you're going to sell the tax planning services. Get that add-on going, then you can buy Tax Planner Pro. Make sense? Save your money until you need it. Okay, so that's the tax planning video. And here's our action plan. So first, make sure you show clients, where bookkeeping and tax planning meet. Because as I said at the beginning, right, bookkeeping is a huge piece of tax planning. They want you thinking about how you can save them money while you're doing the bookkeeping. Encourage projections and understanding tax due. That's what 85% of your clients want. They're not going to do a strategy. They just need to know what the tax is going to be in the projections. They're willing to pay you for it. Educate your clients on how hard it is to reduce tax. It's possible, but you have to be disciplined. Remind that tax planning is the art of the possible. Have the CPA tax team help you with tax plans once you start getting them going. They're sitting there all from June to December with very little to do, I assure you. And so they're ready to help, and they want to have a meaningful meeting with your client. They'll review the tax projections, they'll review the bookkeeping, they'll review the 1040. It's a really good service. And then get Tax Planner Pro as soon as you sell your first tax planning package. But hold off on it and don't waste your money. Don't spend money you don't have to. That's a good rule of business, right? Don't spend money you don't have to until you really need it, right? So I want to make sure I've emphasized that. This isn't meant to be an infomercial for Tax Planner Pro. It's meant to say this tool is sitting there waiting for you as soon as you sell this package. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for watching. That finishes up tax planning. I've still got some more videos for you to watch in this Accounting 2 module. So if you are not tired, why don't you come meet me over there? I'm ready to get started right now. All right. Thanks so much. See ya.